right, Amy, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And my first question to you is, before you switched to cybersecurity, what were you doing? What was your career like?
So before I switched to cybersecurity, I was actually working in insurance. I was an underwriting assistant. For that, I got in through a temp job. So I was pretty much hopping around most of the time.
Why cyber, Amy? Why did you choose cybersecurity as your career?
So I actually fell in love with cybersecurity because of a podcast, specifically Darknet Diaries. Um, I was on when I was working at my previous job. I was listening to all these podcasts, and it sounded so fun and interesting, and it definitely was something where every single day to day was different. So
Mm.
it garnered my interest.
Cool, very cool. Um, I also listen to those podcasts, and I think they're wonderful. So, for our audience, if they are looking for a podcast, I think Darknet Diaries is definitely a good one. That's awesome. I'm so glad that that specific podcast got you interested in cyber. So that's really cool. All right. So, Amy, my next question to you is, what do you do right now?
So my current job title is a network security analyst. In terms of day to day work, I'm pretty much just watching the flow of logs and like the flow of traffic, and it's mainly monitoring. I'm doing blue team work. So anytime I see anything that's a bit nefarious, I would dig into it and then either choose to block an IP or like set up rules to help the customers, things like
Cool.
that, like network engineering type stuff too.
Nice. What was your transition like? How did you go from being an underwriting assistant uh, to a cybersecurity professional?
So in terms of transitioning, it was I pretty much just use evolved. I didn't really have any prior experience. I did take like one course of programming back in college,
Mhm.
but that didn't really stick with me. Um, I learned pretty much everything from Evolve.
Cool. So how have you been using, what you've learned on your in your current day to day? How has that helped you?
Me. Oh, I think it definitely made how I do my searches and everything, like how looking at the finer details and kind of figuring out what the bigger picture is and kind of learning how to read the tracks of the people that are kind of hitting the firewalls.
Sure. For those in the audience that are looking to switch into cybersecurity, what advice would you give to them?
For people who are looking to join cybersecurity, I would definitely recommend just being curious. Kind of, this is an industry where you kind of have to stay on top of everything. If you're not interested in this field, being a good analyst or being a good red team or blue team or whatever you want to be, it's gonna be really hard because everything's changing so quickly and everything's always progressing. This is an industry that's extremely fast moving, but
Cool.
that's pretty much why I like it.
Yeah. If I asked you, okay, Amy, I want to start a career, I want to be just like you, what advice would you give to those people?
In terms of advice and how to get into the industry, I would say go to Evolve. Also, like you can always learn from other programs outside. There's like I think tryhackme.com, which is I think a free program where you could just learn about red teaming stuff, or you could kind of read the news, figure out which path or what you want to learn about more, things like that.
Cool. Let's talk a little bit about what were the challenges that you faced during the transition phase and how did you overcome them?
So for me, the biggest challenge that I had was just getting my foot into the industry. Since I didn't really have that big of a resume, just when you throw in your resume, it was really hard for anyone to like or really hard for HR to kind of view it and be like, oh, this person is definitely a really good candidate for this position. In terms of how I got into my position, I definitely relied on like networking and the other Evolve alums to help me.
You graduated pre-COVID, right?
Hmm.
Um, so what sort of events did you attend? Did you do networking, online with, you did mention Evolve alums. Could you talk a little bit more about the networking portion?
There's like a site called meetup.com, and there were a
Mhm.
lot of programming and like security type of events that they had open to the public. I ended up joining a couple of those and just kind of chatting with the people. That was mainly how I networked. I think when I joined, they were having like a Christmas party. So they had
Cool.
a little virtual Christmas room set up where people could like wander in avatars.
Nice. When you were thinking about transitioning into cybersecurity, I'm sure there must have been many options that you had. Why did you choose Evolve? What was the reason that made you choose Evolve Academy?
So the reason why I chose Evolve was because how they continue to like help their graduates with kind of looking for jobs. I did definitely apply to a different boot camp. After talking with them, I it was some of the boot camps are a bit they kind of just leave you high and dry after you graduate. But
Let's talk a little bit about that experience. After you graduated, you were looking for a job.
mhm.
Um, what are some of the things that you did? How did you start the process of looking for a job?
So for what I did to help me get my current job, I ended up kind of working for Evolve afterwards as a instructor.
Hmm.
Um, and then after that, it was because it was during COVID season two, pretty much the height of COVID. There weren't
Hmm.
that many places hiring. I ended up throwing my resume everywhere.
Hmm.
Um, it just happened. It just so happened that this company ended up contacting me much later on after I sent them my resume. When they contacted me, I ended up doing the interview, and then the job interview. The reason why I got it was because of an Evolve alum. They ended up
Oh, cool.
recommending me to the job. So
How cool is that? I did not know that, but
yeah.
usually, I mean, our uh, so we have graduated about 1,000 alums so far, and um, the you're right. There's many jobs that our alums would recommend a fellow graduate from. So how cool is that? I had no clue that you got a job through an alum. So that's very cool.
Yep.
All right, I have a question that came in from Ian, and Ian says, "How did you find your first job in cybersecurity without actual job cybersecurity work experience?" If I may add a little bit over here, like, so we do have the 2 weeks that we do post boot camp where we do uh, the the security assessment project, where you are working as a cybersecurity analyst. So I believe that must have also helped you. But uh, I'm
Yes.
sure the audience wants to hear from you. So how do you do that?
That actually did definitely help me. In terms of gaining experience and kind of figuring out what a customer would want from just cybersecurity assessment. The project that we had worked on in Evolve, we actually deal with was it nonprofits usually, right?
Hmm.
So during that work definitely helped me. You could also, this is what I've been doing as well. If I find a company that's kind of like a startup or like a nonprofit, I would offer my services to them and just say like, hey, I'll definitely write you a contract. We'll have everything legit. If you want a free cybersecurity assessment, I'm more than willing to help you do that. And that was how I got like a bit more experience after Evolve. I would recommend having like a little business email for that.
Sure. That's it. That's a great strategy. When you are trying to get your foot in the door, offer, free cybersecurity assessment. Um, we do give our students a lot of experience in the boot camp and how to complete a project end to end from the proposal phase all the way to report presentation. So you could definitely build upon that experience and offer your services for free or pro bono to businesses. And usually nonprofits are pretty open to having somebody come in and volunteer in the cybersecurity as a cybersecurity consultant. So that's great advice, Amy. Thank you very much for that. All right, Prince has a question. Says, hi, Amy. How was the learning experience like, especially coming from a non-IT background? Also, did you sit for any cybersecurity certifications after the program? If so, which certification?
I think I might be a bit of a unique case. I have a high pattern recognition, so it's kind of easy for me to learn things like really quickly. So in terms of the learning experience, I think it was really good, especially because Evolve usually lays everything out pretty easily. It's very simple, and then I definitely learned more about technology in Evolve versus like that one course in college that I took. In terms of cybersecurity certifications after the program, uh, Evolve gives you I think, a voucher for Sec Plus. If you end up having a Sec Plus and you want to apply for a different certification, you can always do that as well. I ended up getting quite a few certifications afterwards, just because my job currently, they require it because we're more of a blue-green team. We have a lot of vendors that we work with, and the vendors, in order to like keep partnerships up, you need to have certifications for them.
Salman says, I'm a graduate in computer science, have certs like Cyber Ops Associate, CCNP, and participate in hackathon. My question is, how can someone get a job without relevant experience? And what do you recommend for getting a L1 position or an internship? So I'm assuming this is like a SOC analyst level one, or perhaps an entry level position.
Well, it certainly sounds like you have a lot of experience already, but networking is definitely what you will have to do. Pretty much any job that you want to go for, networking is the best way to help like you get any job. I know at my previous company, we had a sales guy who he was selling like cars and just happened to talk to the right person at the time who was buying one of his cars. And he offered him a job at my previous company to be I think a traveling like sales management position.
Mhm.
So it's definitely about who you know sometimes. Always get out there, talk to people, make friends.
So again, it all comes down to networking, right?
Hmm.
Network, in person, online, LinkedIn. Uh, all right, that's great advice, Amy. Ian has another question. What certifications do you think will be useful?
If you're going these kind of blue team route, I would definitely recommend Sec Plus. Um, I think the CISA Plus is also pretty good.
Mhm.
Uh, there's quite a few, but pretty much certifications just kind of elevate your resume a bit more. It
Mhm.
definitely gets more eyes on it.
I think I'd like to add something on that, Amy, like, certifications in cloud computing, like
Mhm.
AWS and Azure. Those are also some good certifications to have. Um, I think the everybody's moving to the cloud now, right? So having a good idea about cloud security architecture, cloud security, cloud penetration testing, those also, would be some good certifications that you can have. Amy, now a question from me. What is your most favorite part of working in the cybersecurity industry?
My favorite part about working in the cybersecurity industry, it has to be how fast paced it is.
Mhm.
I'm a type of person who gets bored at a job really easily. It's definitely kept me on my toes. I have to continuously learn, which is something I love. and every single day is like a new opportunity to learn. And with the people that I work with, you always get a lot of people from different backgrounds, different ways of looking at things. So it helps you broaden your own perspective on certain things as well. That's definitely why I love my industry.
That's a great answer. Things are challenging, right? Things change
hmm
every day. Um, the attackers are always one step ahead of the defenders, and the defenders have to stay up and have to stay ahead of the attacker. So it's a constant cat and mouse game. That's what I love about cybersecurity as well. It's challenging, ever changing, constantly changing. So that's a great answer. Another question I have: how do you keep your skills updated now that you're a cybersecurity professional?
Well, in terms of keeping updated, I have like a news that plays in the morning for me. So every time my alarm goes off, specifically cyber news kind of gets played. So I wake up to listening to that. But also at my job, we every single person at my specific team, we kind of keep each other in checks, just kind of throwing out news articles, or like we would listen to podcasts as a team just to make sure that everything in terms of news wise, we stay up to date. But in terms of like actual skill, that's just the job, man.
Mhm.
Because of how my specific team works, we're always there will always be like things that we learn on the job, and that will never change. That's just how it is with my specific team.
What would be like the starting salary of a cybersecurity professional? Now there are many jobs out there, but
Yeah.
what do you think?
So I don't have a specific number. I would definitely recommend finding the pay scale in your specific city, because every city is actually different in
Mhm.
terms of starting pay. There's usually a minimum that you'll see into like a cap. There's pretty big of a range. So
Mhm.
when I was interviewing for this new job, I was actually offered a promotion at the previous job. So I took that into account as well. If you're currently working and you have a certain pay that you're getting, if you're switching industries, I don't know, I would say like 30%, man. Go aim high.
Get a 30% premium if you want to switch into cyber. That's great advice. That's a good place to start. Whatever you're making currently, add 30% to it. So
Yeah.
that's good. All right, Amy, we have a minute left into the webinar. Any final thoughts, any final advice for our audience?
In terms of final advice, I would just say, stay curious. Just get to talking with people within the industry. If you're doing things like hackathons, start talking to people. It's definitely a pretty nice community.